Hey, Connor. You've had a couple of days to process this. I know, obviously, another tough loss. Just can you give us his thoughts on, one, the run, because a lot of people didn't expect you guys to make the run that you did, and then the final, how did you kind of see it all go down?
Yeah, incredibly disappointing, obviously. Another fun run to be a part of. It's always fun to see what the city, how the city kind of supports us and gets behind us and brings people together. But obviously extremely disappointing to not get it done.
You got 1 year left on your contract. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about that. Can you give us any update or situation, or what do you expect moving forward?
As you said, yeah, it's only been a couple days since the season ended. Take some time to regroup. Talk to my agent a little bit and family and all that, and make some decisions whenever that time comes. But there's no rush on anything like that.
Connor, afterwards, you look, it was a 2-2 series, you come down to best of 3, and you mentioned after the game you felt like you just kept doing the same things in game 5 and 6. Can you maybe elaborate on what you felt were those things that ultimately cost you in those 2 games?
Yeah, not good enough starts, obviously. Chasing a game, chasing both games, pretty, down 2, down 3. Not easy to come back. What were the things? I mean, same stuff. We struggled breaking the puck out. That's not on D. That's on everybody. We struggled getting up the ice. Couldn't kind of sustain any pressure, and you just get worn down like that. And I thought, I thought they played really well. They played great.
I know there's not a lot of solace when you lose. Ultimately, you want to win. Your team's good. You go to back-to-back cups. You don't just fluke your way into back-to-back cups, and be really close in both years. Following up on Derek's comment, obviously, I think you know what you mean to Oilers fans and everybody. And Leon said, obviously, he'd like you here forever. It's not something you had to talk about, but with the July 1st window opening, when you look at just what you've built here with this team and how close it is, do you feel like there's unfinished business for you?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. This core has been together for a long time, and we've been building to this moment, all along. The work that's gone on behind the scenes, the conversations, the endless, disappointments, and some good times along the way, obviously as well. We're all in this together, trying to get it over that finish line. With that being said, ultimately, still need to do what's best for me and my family, and that's who you have to take care of first. But of course, there's unfinished business here. Yeah.
You mentioned, obviously it's disappointing, but are you able to focus as much on the good times? Because you think about it, there's, the ending's bad, but all the other steps on the journey to get there have been really good. Do you have a balance of that to ensure you don't just focus on the end result?
Tough to focus on the good stuff 2 days out after, that disappointment, obviously. I'm sure as time goes on, we'll look back on, another successful kind of run, I guess, making it to the finals and be 2 games away. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of that, but at the end of the day, I get up here every year and tell you that it's all about winning, and it's only about winning, and we won't be satisfied until that's done.
So, theoretically, Florida throws a game at you guys that you just, as you point out, you guys never quite figured out. Theoretically, every team could just say, okay, we'll just throw that game at the Oilers and we're going to beat them. I know it doesn't work that way. Does this team need to change, structurally? Does it need to change a great deal so that the next team that throws that game at you, you know how to handle it?
Well, I think Florida's a special group. They got I said it after the thing. They got 8 guys with 20-plus points in the playoffs. Their third line is plus 20. That's unheard of. Their back end's big and fast and long and tough. And they got a world-class goaltender. They're not just throwing any game at you. They're throwing their game that they've practiced and worked at, and obviously have come up with a recipe that is extremely successful. And I think we're doing that in our own way. It might not look like Florida, it might not look like their game, but it's a solid game in its own way. Every team is going to have their own strategy with their personnel. I think we've found a winning formula here. Didn't find a way to get 2 more wins, obviously, and that's the end goal. But yeah, I forget what your question was anyway. Sorry, I talked myself into a circle. Sorry, sorry.
Connor, respecting that, and you mentioned how much you got some things to think about, obviously, but what are those things? What do you want to kind of drill down on as you make a decision here on a contract extension and the thought of possibly staying here for a while?
Winning would be at the top of the list, and then winning would be it's the most important thing. If I feel that there's a good window to win here over and over again, then signing is no problem. Yeah, I again, it's only been a couple of days. I'm sure we'll get into it over the course of the next couple of weeks. But again, I'm not in a rush to make any decision, so I don't think that there needs to be any timeline. I know people are going to look at that July 1 day and be looking to see if there's anything done. But for me, I'm just not in a rush that way. So
I know this might be a weird or stupid question, but is there any way you compare the 2 losses last year versus this year, just in the way you guys felt? Would it feel any differently?
I would say last year was like heartbreak. Like you're sad. I'd say this year is more angry. Just than heartbreak. It's more frustrating. It's more, I would say that would be the comparison.
Connor, your team has run up against the champion now 4 years in a row. That combined with the 4 nations, did you see different levels of hockey this year than you've seen before? And can it push the team and your own game forward a little bit, seeing those levels?
We don't need to look very far at what it takes to win or what it feels like to play against a winning team. As you said, we've done it 4 years in a row now. The hockey at the 4 Nations was the best hockey I've ever been a part of, that level. And a close second would be that Florida team that we just played. So there's certainly levels to everything, and Florida's reached a real high level, and certainly lots we can learn from that.
Connor, you've been here for a while, and now it's 2 Stanley Cup finals in a row that went the wrong way. So what's the balance between frustration and a strengthening of resolve?
Well, we come back and we do it again. There's no quit. Guys can take their time and get healthy, and guys will go through their process, whatever that process looks like for each individual person. But ultimately, it's on every person in that room, in that organization, to dust themselves off, come back and be better. I know that's cliche, but it's true. Everyone's got to find a new level. It's not like we have a ton of cap room and we got a long list of highly touted prospects knocking on the door. It's got to come from within the players that are playing, and everybody's got to find a new level, myself included.
And just sort of following that up, how do you think this team, this organization is positioned, not just for next year, but 3, 4, 5 years down the road to keep this window open?
I think the team is certainly positioned to be really good again next year. Really, really good again next year. Beyond that, I don't know or care. We're worried about next year, and that's the only focus.
How do you handle the pressure that you have on yourself? A lot of people expect you to help carry the team. You're the captain, the talent that you have, but you have to deal with the psyche of your teammates, but also yourself. How did you deal with that 2 cup runs in a row, having to worry about the others, but also yourself?
Well, I think every team that is successful and goes to the finals and I don't think you need to really worry about guys. That's certainly the case in our room. There's no one to worry about. Everybody is a strong individual player, person, that can take care of themselves and can perform in big moments. I think we've showed that time and time again. And so I think this is, I said it kind of in between the West Final and the final that this was the easiest group I've ever been a part of, and that's true. There's not many guys to worry about in there.
And just with the fans, like a message to them, because a lot of people are watching the contract talks. It's a big deal for a lot of fans. And so I know you can't really give any reassurances right now or anything like that, but just, they've been through a ride as well over the last couple of seasons. And so, wanting to see what exactly happens with your future here in Edmonton.
My message to the fans would be to keep being patient and keep believing, because they've been through a lot, obviously, as you said, just like our team has. The emotional highs, the lows. I look at what these playoff runs do to my family. It's hard on them. It's hard on the fans. It's hard on everybody. But ultimately, when that day comes, it'll all be worth it. These moments are tough now, and it's tough to look to that. But when that moment comes, it'll be, it'll be worth the wait for sure.
Connor, Nuge was able to play, and he's hurt. Ekholm was able to play, not as well as he could, being hurt. What did you miss most by not having Zach Hyman, who obviously could not play?
Yeah, injuries certainly played a factor. Missing Hyman in a series where, speed and is that your podcast you're listening to? Huh? Huh?
You just dropped Deshaun Watson in the status.
Injuries, definitely played a factor, I would say. Missing High in a series where, battles and speed and getting up the ice were an issue. Those are Zach's specialty. Missed him a lot. Nuge, to be able to gut it out with, a broken hand and give us what he gave us was pretty special. That was a pretty painful thing for him to go through, and it wasn't easy to watch him go through that, but pretty amazing what he was able to do. And obviously, he said Eki with his groin, giving us everything he had. Ultimately, just it sucks to not be 100% in those big moments as a group.
Just last one, I guess, for me, Connor. Just you talk about winning being the most important thing in this decision for you. Do you look at this organization and do you think this organization gives you that best opportunity? Like around, like when you guys are so close, do you feel in your heart like this is the organization that gives you a really good opportunity to win?
3 days ago, we were 2 games from winning. Last year, we were 2 shots away from winning. So the belief is incredibly high in that room. We talked about that all throughout the playoffs. And we do believe that, this group can win and will win. I hope that answers your question. I would say yeah. I would say yeah.
Hey, Connor, just one last one for me, because there's another player whose contract is the talk of the town, and that's Evan Bousard. Can you maybe discuss how much you've seen him grow and what he's meant to this team in the playoffs over the last couple of years?
Yeah, every time there's a big game or a big moment, he shows up, and that's a skill that not everybody has. So, does he make some boo-boos every now and then in November? Sure, we all do. But I think his game has been just improving year after year, and seems like month by month he just gets better and better. So thought he took big strides defensively this year, taking on a role in the penalty kill, as we've talked about. He's incredibly important to the group. Definitely a deal that needs to get done, and one that is really important for us.